we have M-Dragon versus Lauriane, with the Ho-Oh leading off against Darkrai. So Ho-Oh's standard lead set runs Lumberry, but players have been moving away from that. There have been examples of Pasho Berry, and there are a ton of other options as well, just floating around waiting to be explored, your Custaps and maybe even your Citruses and your Charties for when people start using Stone Edge. And some people even used Choice Band. But the general idea is that they've moved away from Lum because Lum is standard on Darkrai, or sorry, on a Ho-Oh, so you would be pretty crazy to try and sleep it with Darkrai. Generally, anyway. And some of those other sets, if they kind of don't want to run Roost as much, and if they don't have Lum, then they just switch over to Sleep Talk. But then again, Ho-Oh does not quite KO Darkrai from full. Well, not to mention the Darkrai. Standard is Scarf, but it could also be Chople, and both of those are vulnerable to an Oko from Brave Bird, I believe. Yeah, Brave. So, well, that's from Life Orb. But I think even regular Brave Bird. Oh, never mind. Yeah, Darkrai is deceptively bulky, and Sacred Fire does not put it into burn range. So, even with the max roll. So, it's not actually, when you think about it more, it's not actually that crazy for Darkrai to Dark Void it if you're willing to, try and hit twice. So, it's an interesting dynamic, and we will see where it goes. Of course, you're risking your Darkrai being basically taken out of the game early on just to sleep the Ho-Oh. But, given how tough Ho-Oh is to, play around early in the game before rocks go up, then it might be worth it. Especially if you feel like you can do without your Darkrai. I mean, it wouldn't be ideal, but it'd be better than switching around Ho-Oh. Because if there's anything that Ho-Oh has proven, it's that switching around it is the biggest pain in the whole tier. I mean, switching into Kyogre is one thing, but I'm exaggerating a little, but switching into Ho is unbelievably annoying. So, Lauriane goes to Kyogre on the first turn, and if M-Dragon Sacred Fires, he could still get a burn on this if it's not Lum. And if it's Rest, being forced to Rest is never bad. And if it's Pasho, he could stay in on this and Brave Bird anyway. So Lauriane does not decide to go for the Dark Void thing. And if M-Dragon Brave Bird's right away, just looking for that big damage. I think most players would Sacred Fire, though, because that way you potentially damage Darkrai even if it does get the sleep off on you. If it gets the second sleep off on you, rather, if you are Lum, then you go for Sacred Fire so the burn sticks to it and it does go down on the second turn after. Because, well, it's likely, if you look at the roll, then it's likely that, pretty likely, reasonably, you give yourself better odds to, leave the Darkrai KO'd with you, or leave the Darkrai KO'd as it gets the second sleep off, as opposed to Brave Birding and putting more damage on yourself and not burning the Darkrai. So I think it is reasonable, or it is the good play to go for Sacred Fire here. And that's exactly what M-Dragon does. But we have some explanations behind it, which is nice. So no burn on the Kyogre, and it shows leftovers. So M-Dragon is not going to risk any Pasho Brave Bird stuff. He goes to Latios, which gets paralyzed. And I'm just wondering, when are the Lati twins going to start including Refresh in their movesets? Because Groudon and Kyogre are running T-Wave so much. So, yeah, T-Waving Latios is, it's still going to hit hard, but it's so much easier to deal with now. And Pokemon it would threaten out before are not going to threaten it. Or now going to... Pokemon it would threaten before are now going to threaten it in return, like Rayquaza or something. So, even if, if it's Lum Ho-Oh, you fear the Water move, and if it's Pasho Ho-Oh, you fear T-Wave. So, either way, Latios is the better switch in. Especially because Brave Birding a healthy Kyogre with leftovers is not ideal. It'd be different if it wasn't going to be healing. So, that was the right move, I think. So... Now in comes Dialga, which normally would not, be ideal. M-Dragon makes a good move and doubles to Fortress, knowing Kyogre does have the advantage over Latios one-on-one, but still doesn't really want to push it. I mean, it could Calm Mind if it really wanted to be annoying, but it's probably safer to just switch. And so M-Dragon decides to get some initiative and go to Fortress as Dialga comes in, and this is a prime example of T-Wave turning a matchup around. I mean, Dialga's kind of actually it is a very shaky switch into Latios with I mean, even with no rocks, so it actually gets leftovers instead of just having them nullified. It's not great, but with when it's paralyzed, then it's much better. So within rain, Foray does not have to fear Fire Blast OHKOing it, and it can get up some spikes. And now here comes Darkrai to get some Dark Void off safely, so nicely handled by Lauriane early on. As now, even if Ho-Oh is Lum, then it's going to burn the Lum on the first turn, and then Darkrai can sleep it on the next turn. And it can't even threaten with Sacred Fire as much because it is raining. So, yeah, and, Latios can technically sleep block one turn, but I don't know if you really want to be doing that. Of course, it could be annoying if paralyzed Latios sleep blocked your Scarf Darkrai locked in the Dark Void, but it's still a crazy risky play. I mean, not the craziest thing, and he does it, and he tricks instead. That was a much safer move, so that was very nicely done on Lauriane's part, finding the middle ground. I mean, you could also say that you could have double switched to Dialga there, and because it's raining, so you're not you can actually threaten Ho-Oh with Thunder, and you get a good one-on-one against Latios, and you can get up some rocks. But that was a nice move as well, because now now Darkrai doesn't really use the Soul Dew, but you can potentially trick the Soul Dew onto something else and take away crucial leftovers from a Dialga or something. And the Latios is not even going to be hitting very hard, or it's not going to be hitting hard as Latios is expected. So Dialga can switch into the Draco Meteor easily now. So Darkrai is not even going to switch out of it because it can probably take a. Well, first of all, there's not a great odds for Latios to even hit the Draco here between Dragon. We really have to update this Dex thing and have. Okay, so Draco is a roll to KO Darkrai, but I would think I would, if you have the chance to get a free KO here, then definitely take it, because first of all, I mean, Draco Meteor is not even it's a roll, 31.3%, and it has to avoid a Dark Pulse flinch. It has to avoid getting crit by Dark Pulse. It has to avoid getting full paralyzed, and it has to hit the Draco Meteor, and it has to get the roll. So if all that happens and Latios actually hits and gets the roll, or I guess I could crit the Draco Meteor too, but if all that happens, then you can blame the numbers, I think, reasonably. And you don't want to fall too far behind. I mean, you want to do damage. You want to make your Darkrai actually get the most out of your offense instead of just falling back on Dialga. Get some progress going. Make it so that next time, and I mean, even if all that happens, then what that means is that Kyogre is completely unstoppable now. So, I mean, even more so than it already was. But yeah, Dark Pulse and Para, and now Ho-Oh comes in. The good news, at least if it is Lum Ho-Oh, is that the Lum is not getting burned on the switch, because you don't want to Dark Void the Latios in that situation. I mean, the Dragon Pulse chip is nice, but it also shows that the Ho-Oh is not even Lum. It's leftovers. So with the 4E team, I guess M-Dragon's looking more for some Protect or some Sub-Roost action on a semi-stallish kind of thing. And there's the Dark Void, knowing even a Brave Bird won't KO, and your Sacred Fire is going to be nullified in rain, so you're going to get 2 chances at least. And the Dark Void hits, and Bad Dreams. And what's pretty funny here is that the Darkrai can actually trick the Soul Dew away and ruin whatever wants to switch in, or you can just go right to Kyogre and press the issue more instantly. So that's probably a better move overall. And so M-Dragon, credit to him for sure. I mean, that Hydro Pump does a ton of damage, and that's okay. So it's a very offensively minded Kyogre. It's probably max HP, max special attack, and you don't really see Hydro on the T-Wave sets as much. So nice. I like seeing that here. Potentially 2 KOing Dialga cleanly. So it's very clearly a 0 bulk Dialga. Almost surely going to be Scarf here, because it's going to be the source of speed and not the Rocker. I mean, I guess it feasibly could be both, because I think Scarf Rocks Dialga is pretty awesome. But anyway, point being, M-Dragon does have a backup Kyogre check. You got to be careful of those. I mean, Lotties get pursued sometimes too, so you can't. It's generally not good to have 5 Pokemon completely destroyed by Kyogre, because that's generally. I mean, even unless you have like a truly perfect counter like Quagsire or something, but still. So now M-Dragon is hoping that the Kyogre is just going to switch out, not wanting to... Because Kyogre is clearly such a huge threat at this point. I think even if you can potentially beat this Dialga one-on-one, then you should probably switch out, because you can switch into a Scarf Dialga pretty easily with such a healthy team. And... which clearly leans more towards... Oh, sorry. That was the screen of me uploading the previous series before this. As you can see, that's what OBS titles it to automatically, so I have to change that after. Anyway, so the idea is you don't want to risk Kyogre's health like a Thunder Para or just taking a big Draco Meteor hit, especially because it's going to be a roll with Hydro and accuracy and all that. It's just, you know, unnecessary odds when you could just play it safe, go to your Dialga, get up rocks, and next time Kyogre comes in, you're really going to be piling it on. So, and M-Dragon makes a good move, assuming Lauriane will do that. You know, I can't fault that logic. Even if it doesn't work out, it was a good move. That's how Pokemon is sometimes, and that's one of the many reasons why being results-oriented about Pokemon is really, really short-sighted and silly. And another reason why you went to Groudon there is even if Kyogre stays in, what's the likeliest move? Is it just going to be going for the Hydro hit? Or, you know, maybe even chipping it with Ice Beam? No, the likeliest move is Thunder Wave, because that way you guarantee you ruin the Dialga as well. And then when you come in, and that way, that's actually definitely the best way to do it, if you do decide to stay in, because then next time you come in, then, you know, Latios down, and the Dialga, assuming you get up rocks, then the Dialga is going to be helpless too. So, great pivot from M-Dragon, keeping himself around. So he covers the T-Wave and he covers the Dialga switch. So beautifully done by M-Dragon. You know, he's in a tough spot, but that was really, you know, way to bring it back. I mean, the Kyogre's likely going to come. Well, he wants to. Lauriane finally gets up some rocks, and the Groudon gets up some rocks as well. So it's going to be harder for Kyogre to switch in now with rocks and spikes and the potential EQ. So it's probably not going to happen right now. Something like Tina O or a Lottie Twin's probably going to switch in, but. Either way, the next time Latios or Kyogre comes in, it's going to be scary. I mean, even if M-Dragon's last is, you know, fast and aggressive, it's not necessarily going to be enough because Kyogre is, you know, very tanky. Especially with the lefties. Lefties really pay dividends. So, yep, there's the Tina. Oh, you've got to be able to switch into the EQ. Another great move from M-Dragon. Not just going for the EQ, going for the T-Wave. So, doing everything he can to bring himself back. So, with that T-Wave, he has now already chunked the Tina O. And his comeback attempt is going to be, you know, Latios down, Fori, I mean, not exactly a promising prospect of Fori dominance in this game. You know, with Ho-Oh, rocks up, not going to be able to spin, sleeping. But the Scarf Dialga with rocks and spikes does look pretty threatening, and the Groudon's got something. The problem is, what's switching into this Draco? I mean, it's not going to... Ho normally would be a great choice, but now Lauriane makes a great move, and instead of just going for the Draco... well, if Groudon stays in to just try and chunk the Giratina, then it's going to be Dragon Claw, and Kyogre can switch into that, no problem. You know, unstab 80 BP as opposed to stab EQ. So, definitely. And if Dragon does switch out to something else, then odds are then Kyogre is going to have a good matchup against it, given, you know, if it's like Ho-Sack or something, then you're going to just get free turns for gaining lefties back off of your thing, while... forcing in those, or forcing a KO, basically. Giratina, it boils down to, Kyogre basically forces a KO every time it's in, so you should try to get in as much as possible, and Giratina, not necessarily. You could potentially just thud with Draco into a Spadef Don while it chunks you down with Dragon Claw. So great move from Lauriane. And M-Dragon goes for Dragon Claw. So at the very least, his Dragon Claw has chunked the Kyogre switch in. So another reason to go for it. But the nice thing about that is that at least now the Kyogre, while it is going to grab a KO here, you know, certainly, he will now have a more... He'll now have an easier time actually revenge killing it. Although this game shows just how critical lefties on Kyogre is. I mean, it sounds like the simplest, most obvious thing, but you really see how far they're going here. Because without lefties, like if it was Lum or, you know, Mystic Water or something, then look how quickly it'd be getting worn down just from like the little tiniest, you know, nothing. I mean, the Sacred Fire even, which did a total of 11%, it really would have added up without those lefties. And with the spikes later on, and now the rocks and spikes into the little Dragon Claw. So yeah, so Latios comes in, easiest sack. And down to the Hydro. Fortunately for M-Dragon, it hits and doesn't give Kyogre extra lefties. So now here comes Dialga. Kyogre is in Thunder range. Sport Dialga eats that up all day. But I think the move is definitely Draco for M-Dragon. So he does not have to Thunder into Dialga haplessly. And on the other hand, yeah, Kyogre is definitely not getting risk here. That would be really silly, in my opinion. So, yep, here comes Dialga. And M-Dragon goes for the Draco Meteor. So, good move, doing a lot, but against a plus F Dialga, not quite enough, even with Rocks and Spikes, because that was an impressive display of Dialga on both sides. And so now Lauriane takes advantage of the forced switch and roars, and Fortress gets chunked decently by Rocks, and more importantly, Ho-Oh gets dragged in. And it has slept 2 turns, so it could potentially wake up and actually be quite threatening here, depending on its speed and its set. But it sleeps a 3rd turn, and it goes down to the Thunder. And Roar also gives Lauriane's Dialga some more health back, so that's helpful as well. And now M-Dragon goes back to Groudon, and EQ's playing it straightforward. And, there was a potential chain there, like Tina on EQ, Kyogre on Dragon Claw again, force another KO. And because Kyogre, at this point, Kyogre is basically in range for the powerful attacks and out of range for the weak attacks no matter what. And, another Dragon Claw from Groudon is not going to be the backbreaker there. So I think that would have been a fine move, especially because M-Dragon's under a lot of pressure. But I also understand that maybe, Lauriane didn't want to eat Dragon Claw on Giratina on the Switch or get Kyogre EQ'd on the Switch, because that could potentially make the game much more difficult. Especially because, and now the more I think about it, the more I agree, especially because it's not really like Dialga is needed at this point, because, you're preserving a less than half health Dialga, and if you switch it out, it's going to be at less than half, even less than half than it already is, thanks to Rocks and Spikes, and it's slow, so not really super necessary. And with Ho-Oh down, then Darkrai now comes in and gets another Dark Void off, and further puts Lauriane ahead. So I definitely agree with the Dialga sack there. Good move. So and you don't have to go to Darkrai now, obviously, but Kyogre gets a super free switch in now and is going to claim another KO. And the sack is definitely going to be another slow Pokemon Fori. Unfortunate Hydro miss there, because now it gives Kyogre some more lefties, although whether or not that actually winds up mattering, who knows. So Dialga comes in again, going to scare out Kyogre with Draco this time, and Lauriane goes to Skarmory. Oh, Dragon Pulse, playing it on the safer side. But yes, nice team from Lauriane. I like M-Dragons as well, but we're seeing how dangerous T-Wave Kyogre is. Maybe if he was able to get down T-Spikes or something early in the game, this would be a lot more manageable. But as it stands, this is difficult. So with the Groudon set walled by Skarm and an unrevealed last, then I think the move for Lauriane definitely the spike. I think Spikes are the safest, simply because you can phase out whatever's threatening and then come in revenge with Darkrai or Kyogre or Giratina, or the unrevealed last, which is actually no, it's not gonna be a Scarfer because it's Scarf Darkrai, but not that you couldn't do both, but generally. So there's Heatran, and in rain, yep, there's the Spikes. You want those, limiting the Dialga and the Groudon, of course. And Giratina is a perfect Heatran switch in rain, and it's paralyzed, so it can't even be burned by Lava Plume. So this one's looking pretty wrapped up, barring some massive tosses. And even with that full para, and Groudon. Oh, Lauriane switches to Latias now. So even, if with the para, and now, Heatran comes in on Draco and doesn't take much, or Groudon sacks itself, it's not... Kyogre, as long as Kyogre is kept alive and Lauriane does not allow Dialga to clean up with Dragon Pulse, which, is trivial, then this game is pretty much unlosable. So the Darkrai reveals... Oh, it doesn't even have Focus Blast. That's cool. Yes, Ice Beam is cool on Scarf Darkrai. I mean, it's cool in general, but just for the extra hit on Groudon. But on Scarf, it lets you do cool stuff against Ray, and the Skyman too, but that's rare. But I was thinking more... Rock Polish Groudon. Yeah, it lets you check that better. So, and Garchomp, that's a big one. So, Yeah, so here comes Heatran, which does wall it, but it's also going to get Dark Voided, and then Kyogre's going to come in and rip everything. Oh, no, yeah, we see the trick, and Heatran loses its lefties. Wakes up, Lava Plume, no burn. Doesn't really make a difference because Dialga is... Kyogre's going to come in and Hydro after... I mean, barring some luck, I guess it's not totally ruined, but... yeah, this realistically is not getting anywhere, barring some seriously insane Draco crittage, or Dragon Pulse crittage. I guess Draco crits hit harder if they're consecutive, so you would rather crit those in a row than anything else. But yeah, that's not going to be the case. And hey, look what happened if you crit that Draco. Well, you still wouldn't have gotten through Tina and Kyogre without critting all of them, but anyway, and a consecutive Dragon Pulse crit there would have actually... Yeah, I guess you just had to crit 2 pulses in a row. If you crit 2 pulses in a row on the Scarm, then you would have probably just cleaned up the rest, as opposed to needing to crit all the Dracos. So, never mind, I think the Dragon Pulse route was correct. All you needed was 2 straight on Scarm. But yeah, this is super unlosable, as Scarm just continuously roosts, even out healing a crit with lefties, and there's struggle, and down goes Dialga, and that is game 1. Moving on to 2. Dio speed. So yeah, the lesson here is Ho-Oh Heatran Sun is fun and really good, as we've seen in this tournament, but T-Wave Kyogre is an absolute menace. You got to be really careful around that. Great team from Lauriane. I really like that one. All right, DOS Rayquaza. What's the hazard of choice going to be? Is something I'm hoping we start seeing again. And I think we've seen a couple already. Is e-speeding DOS? That's an ad. Oh, it's okay. Is e-speeding DOS so you can get a hazard and break Ray's Sash before going in for the revenge kill, rather than having to deal with a Sash Ray just to get up a hazard, a full health Sash Ray just to get up a hazard, and risking damage and KOs and all that. So that'd be cool, especially helpful if you're only running Spikes as your hazard on DOS. It's very efficient. Hey, we see Spikes, Draco, a KO. Is it Life Orbed? No, I guess it could be like Draco Plate or something, but unlikely. We don't know if it's sashed or not. Well, M-Dragon knows if that's like Draco Plate, because it doesn't... Well, we don't know M-Dragon's DOS spread, so that Latios switch is pretty ballsy. I mean, hoping that or maybe it's not Draco Plate, but maybe it's plus special attack, which is, still a good choice, but it doesn't necessarily preclude it from Sash. I don't know. The Latios switch is very ballsy. You could very easily just fall behind. And, yeah, maybe he's thinking Draco Plate. Maybe he's thinking... I mean, I don't think Draco Plate on Ray is a great choice, but we don't know what his set is or what his team situation is, so... when Heatran comes in on the Draco, or on the Dragon Pulse even... Draco less Latios is a crime, honestly, I swear. Although, I get, what I don't mind is Draco and Dragon Pulse in the same set, and in this case, then Dragon Pulse was definitely better. So you don't miss against the Ray. So, yeah, I mean, because Lead Ray also runs, what's it called? Outrage, or commonly also runs Outrage. I mean, maybe he was banking on, not going to be Sash, and Outrage is probably going to have Brick Break, and with Soldew I can take a -2 Draco, so manageable. Especially because he's got a Heatran here, so it looks like he's running another more balanced team and doesn't really like dealing with Ray in other ways. So, anyway, M-Dragon switches his Heatran into the other Heatran and absorbs a Toxic, and it is his rocker, so DOS Heatran rocks. That's pretty cool. So he stays in. Now, that was a little bit of an ambitious move on Lauriane's end, I feel. The Draco there, because Lead Ray never runs EQ. I mean, almost never, okay? Like 9 out of 10 times. Whether it's Brick Break or Outrage. I mean, I assume it had Brick Break just because it... So, it turns out M-Dragon was right. Probably doesn't have Outrage. So even if it does have Brick Break, which I assume if it's switching into Heatran, then it's not like Brick Break comes anywhere close to KOing. I mean, even if it was Life Orbed, it wouldn't do that. But it's definitely not Life Orb, so it's almost certain that Heatran is going to stay in and try and status you. I mean, just breaking through the Lum might be helpful, especially because it has Protect. I mean, I guess that line of thought isn't, completely off base, Oh, I have Lum, why would he bother staying in just a Toxic and burn my Lum? But I mean that might make it easier to status later on. It's because if Heatran switching into Heatran, then clearly M Dragon's going to get a lot of Heatran opportunities. So Draco crits and does 48, and he doesn't status. So good move, and he just roars and drags in Groudon. So nicely done from M Dragon. That crit bites. That because doing 48 as opposed to 24 or something is a big difference. But yeah, so now Groudon comes in, and it's very sped up Heatran, and it is slower than Groudon. And he knows the rocks are coming, so he stays in and plumes and gets the burn. So, ballsy, getting some momentum back, or getting some progress made after that crit, and after a rough game one. So Tina O comes in, another T-Wave. I mean, I'm telling you, if you've been keeping up with these battles, then the primals are T-Waving everything in sight, and I hope there's a way to. I hope players start adapting soon. I mean, Tina O is the best automatic Groudon switch, but it's pretty disheartening to see a T-Wave. So we'll see what adaptations are made for this. So that was a good move from Lauriane, not just getting provoked into EQing. And now Rayquaza comes in, and I really disagree with that EQ. I think Draco was clearly... If you have Draco, obviously. If you have Outrage, is a different story. But if you do have Draco there, I think it was very clearly the move, and you don't have to hit Heatran there, because even if Heatran does come in, it's taking Rocks and Spikes and a Grisiosaur boosted Draco. And then you can still EQ it after. It's not like it's threatening you. And so even if Ray does pivot into EQ, then at least you have accomplished, chunking the daylights out of Heatran. So what actually kind of blew my mind was Rayquaza switching into Giratina there in the first place, because I don't think that EQ made sense at all. So predicting it kind of, amazed me. And I think that, the Draco was very, very obvious. So, but I mean, hey, it worked. And now M Dragon sacks Giratina instead of Heatran, which, I mean, I guess he wants to keep Heatran around because it's good against the other Heatran. But, I mean, the Tina, now that it's paralyzed, can't even be burned by the Heatran. And it clearly poses a big threat if Rayquaza is switching into it. So, I don't know. I thought that was sort of wasteful. But now the Latios comes in, and now Groudon gets sacrificed, so Heatran doesn't come into the hit, and Dragon Pulse, and down it goes. So now Heatran into Heatran. Are we going to see Dragon Pulse again as Rayquaza doubles back into Tran? That would be pretty crazy. But no, M Dragon goes, they're both running Roar. Well, okay, no, it makes more, like, on the Rock set, then it's less likely to see Roar. I mean, Stealth Rock, Lava Plume, Protect, then Toxic is generally more common for Kyogres. But, I mean, Roar is great, too, obviously. But if you're not running Rocks, then you definitely like both Toxic and Roar. Anyway, so Latios is dragged back in, and Heatran gets more lefties. I mean, that's a classic Roar Heatran moment. Regardless of the tier, there's another Roar, and in comes Chomp. Now, this will actually threaten the Heatran. And the Groudon, the de facto physical wall, even without investment, is down. So if this is Scarfed, then locking into EQ and letting in Ray can be really obnoxious. If it's not Scarfed, then, I mean, that's what makes Garchomp so dangerous. So he does EQ. We don't know if it's Scarfed or not. And now M Dragon doubles into Latios, and Lauriane goes for Toxic. So he identified. So the Garchomp was identified as Scarf, and he didn't want to let Ray in for free because that was too dangerous. So Lauriane made a great play and went for Toxic and missed the Latios. So that's that bit. And Dragon Pulse is going to do nothing. So, and now the Roar is going down. So at least it's not like the Heatran was punished for its miss particularly harshly. And here comes Groudon. And here comes Latios, in fact, says there's, at this point, Heatran's looking so threatening, even without spikes or anything. So, why not keep it around and why risk it on the Groudon? And M Dragon does not, at that point, most players are going to be really tilted by the Heatran roaring them everywhere and are just going to attack it straight up, especially after that stay-in on the Garchomp, which is, infuriating. But Lauriane plays it safe, goes to Latios, smart move, and M Dragon rock polishes. Now, Dragon Claw comes up just short on most Latios, and Grass Knot is dangerously close to a KO. but it KOs, and it's Life Orb. So, uh, yeah, sometimes you forget with all this. I mean, it's the Dialga principle. Sometimes you think, oh yeah, this Groudon, it's just a support machine, and then you remember it is one of the most powerful Pokemon in the game. So yeah, Life Orb, Dragon Claw, even a bulky Latias is dropping most of the time after the rocks. It's a 68.8% roll there. And a lot of Latias nowadays, especially on more offensive teams, are not running max HP. So, yeah. And now Fori comes in, and if Fori's coming into a Rock Polish Groudon, that's generally a bad sign because they run that, and down it goes, and suddenly the tables have turned as it's looking, yep, that's P-Trans coming in, that's not a good sign, and it's looking like a Rock Polish Groudon sweep if nothing else is coming in, and Ray's going to E-Speed and, Life Orb recoil, but it's not going to be anywhere close to enough because Groudon is bulky as well, and the last is Scarf Dialga, and that's going to drop to EQ as well, so never underestimate a Rock Polish Groudon. My goodness. So that Lava Plume was not without a rhyme or reason at all on the Groudon earlier. Obviously, it's nice to get it down, but, if you can chunk it, then most other... Because Groudon is one of the few Pokemon that can take hits from Groudon, so if you're able to chunk the opposing one, then that can really open yours up later in the game. So that's exactly what we saw. So nicely done from M-Dragon. We move on to Game 3. Kyogre, Tyranitar. So, if you're Sash T-Tar, you might want to just stay and get up some rocks. Those are going to be useful all game. And we also see that the Kyogre is faster than the Tyranitar because it set up its rain first, and that means that the Tyranitar is going to maintain its Sand boost, even if it isn't, what's it called? So even if it isn't Sash, it can live the hit, is what I'm getting at, by maintaining the Sand boost. And it's going to chip Kyogre a little, even if it doesn't attack it directly. And that's helpful, because we know how crucial every single percent of damage is in this tier. And by getting up rocks, then you would get it. So it's reasonable that Tyranitar would switch out, but it's also reasonable, especially depending on the team, if it's more aggressive or offensive, that you would stay in and just get up the rocks. So Hydro does not... That is a bulky tar it's not the bulkiest tar in the universe, but it's still a very bulky tar to not be brought down to a Sash, if it even has one. It's just to live that Kyogre Hydro cleanly. Very bulky tar, and it does in fact get up rocks, and the Kyogre is chipped. So, T-Tar's down, but, it's the damage is in place, and now here comes Dialga. Taking another 6% from Kyogre as it takes minor damage from Ice Beam. And now Dialga has Sand and Rocks up and is going to fire off some attacks. So, what is it going to be? Uh-oh. Well, if Bronzong's their response and the Dialga bulks up, that's real bad. It starts bulking up, and EQ does a cool 17% after 2. So, this could very well just be the game right here. And Lauriane gets up rocks. Well, here's the reason why it doesn't have to be the game. Even though Dialga is going to be impenetrable on the physical, or already is impenetrable on the physical side, it's going to have like a max special defense investment, then there are still a lot of really strong Draco Meteors in this tier. So you can potentially bring it down with those. So, and that crit EQ helps a lot. As, well, not necessarily, because the now the Dialga just rests, so it's Rest Talk bulk up, not Sub. Now that might have really gotten out of hand instantly, because it's a lot harder to, if you can't break the Sub, then it's taking out even more Pokemon. But with Rest Talk, then you have a chance, especially because you can attack it and it might not attack you, because of Sleep Talk. So, Sleep Talk bulks up to +5/+5, and, well, not going to get too many more chances for an EQ crit because of pressure, but, yeah, so if I'm M-Dragon, I have to be really careful of the possibilities of Dracos and Spatial Rens and Dragon Pulses, and Aura Spheres even, And I would not attack I would not KO this Bronzong until I was at absolute full health. And it doesn't have that many EQs left. I would just spam bulk up even after I'm at +6 because it has 2 EQs left. So I think that Dragon Claw was a real waste. I think if you just spam bulk up and get back to 100%, I mean, especially because you don't have Protect or anything, then that's what's going to leave you potentially vulnerable to getting overwhelmed by the special dragon moves. I mean, yes, it's at 94 now, but imagine if it was at 100. So here comes a Dialga. If it's Specs, then... And it is Specs, and that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Imagine if you were at 27 instead of 21. I mean, that leaves you vulnerable to getting KO'd by Kyogre now. 27 instead of 21. Well, I guess you could rest here. That would also be a yeah. I don't know. I don't think that was a. Actually, no. I get that because you don't know that it's not a bulk up roar Dialga, and you don't want it to roar you out or something. I don't know. I think it was so much more likely that this was some sort of Draco meteoring Dialga. Like if it's not a Tentacruel lead laying down T-spikes, then the likelihood of a bulk up roar Dialga drops like 99%, if not more. So I think it was much safer to. It was much better to assume that it was a Draco meteor set of some kind that you could just rest on it. And when it's Specs, then I mean you take out the Specs Dialga, so that's cool. But I don't know. And imagine if you had just waited to be at 100% before that as well. So now I mean Specs Dialga still hits like a truck, and that one almost is almost definitely modest. It feels like, but it still leaves it likely that it's going to be finished up by a spatial rend or something from Palkia. But the general principle stands of you want to be staying at 100% if you can. You definitely could have afforded that. So, yeah, now Dialga, yep, and here comes Palkia. And Spatial Rend is going to finish it off. I don't agree with letting Dialga go down, though, because T-Tar would have been... Because now you still have a useless T-Tar sack, but Dialga, yes, Dialga is not going to do anything anymore because it's slow and not immediately threatening, so it's not going to be useful. But it definitely has more potential for being useful than T-Tar. I mean, leaving Dialga here on Palkia here essentially wastes an extra Spatial Rend thanks to pressure, and I don't know if that's exactly worth it. So, yeah, I think T-Tar should have been sacked there, and so now the score is essentially 4-4, and here comes Lugia. And here comes a Mewtwo. So depending on the Mewtwo set, this could definitely, like if it's a bulky, like anything with Taunt is probably going to beat a Calm Mind Lugia. Like the Taunt Wisp set, and because Lugia is quite a low special attack stat, and oh, Thunder looking for the para on Lauriane's own Calm Minding Psychic type, and Ice Beam does look to be a 2 KO after rocks, and Thunder misses. So. Now the setup threat is on Lauriane's side, as another Ice Beam to make sure that Lugia can't go Thunder Fishing. And now Palkia comes in, and if Palkia is coming into a Calm Mind Mewtwo, that's generally not a great sign. I mean, because even a Spatial Rend crit would disregard the Spadef boost, so it's not a bad idea, especially with the high crit rate, but it's not quite coming. And it does leave it at low health, because Mewtwo doesn't want to recover forever, because, even though it only has 2 Spatial Rends left, thanks to pressure, those are high crit ones, and if you don't have to do it, then why not? Especially because if you KO the Palkia, then M-Dragon only has 2 Pokemon left, and Lauriane still has a healthy Kyogre, a healthy Palkia, and a healthy Unrevealed. So you could end this potential last Pokemon. You're going to have your choice of what to switch into it, so you can maintain the pressure more easily. So what's it going to be? It is a Garchomp. So is it Scarf? It's Scarfed. Well, now that is a threat, because if Kyogre, Kyogre basically has to stay out of Outrage range, and we don't know what the last is. And if there's a Bronzong that's already down, then odds are there's not going to be a much better Garchomp check in the last slot. And indeed, it is Lauriane's own Garchomp. So Tyranitar almost surely being sacrificed here. And so there's an Outrage. So it looks like Lauriane's Garchomp is also going to be Scarf. I guess it depends. Either one of Palkia or Garchomp could be Scarf here, and the Chomp could be SD, or the Chomp could be Scarf, and the Palkia could be Luster Sword or Habenberry or something. Both are great options, but M-Dragon does not have much choice, and Outrage makes it more likely that it's Scarf, because a lot of SD sets tend to go with Dragon Claw. So, or most SD sets even. So M-Dragon goes to Magnezone, and most zone sets, with Thunder, HP Ground, and then like status stuff, they generally don't hit Garchomp very hard. And this one has Flash Cannon, which does a ton, and that specs Magnezone, which you don't see very much, but I can get behind it for sure. That power, with specs Flash Cannon, you actually hit Groudon switch-ins quite hard. You really smack Dialga that you're trying to trap. So that's a nice call from M-Dragon there. And Outrage, it's not going to get a crit or anything, and Sandveil does not activate. But at this point, then, it looks like Lauriane has the game won, because it is going to just be... Sorry, my brain is frying. Garchomp is not going to be... the Kyogre, it is not going to be an Outrage range for Garchomp, so... even if this Palkia is Haben or something, or it misses, or it isn't Haben, then it's probably going to be, ball game. Or even if it is Haben and misses thanks to Sandveil or something. So yeah, Chomp has to Outrage Haben. Oh, it burns through the Haben. So if it was banned Chomp or something, great set, then it would probably win this game, but it is not. And it comes 8% short, and Lauriane takes a thriller of a series. So really, really nicely done to both players in this one, in the team building and playing department. I really like that one. So it was a promising matchup, and it delivered. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.